Welcome back. I had the worst whatnot auction that I've ever had yesterday in terms of the amount of money that I grossed. It was on short notice. It was just clothing. It was not my A stuff in terms of inventory. I grossed about 250 bucks, which is a catastrophe. I'm going to go through what sold for what. Most of it is going to have sold for $3 or no bucks. There's a whole pile of stuff that's out of my car in the trunk of my car right now that did not sell, that's getting redonated. This Nike Cal Poly Just Do It sweater sold for $5, which is pretty low for a Nike sweater, but there were circumstances afoot that made sales really difficult off the top of the auction. This shirt, this Wu-Tang shirt that I got for $5, which is new with tags, it's a 2XL, sold for $7 plus shipping to a buyer in Canada. That was all one order. Total of $12 for these two items plus shipping. The reason that these sold for no money, or relatively no money, is Whatnot introduced a new user interface feature that I didn't know about, where instead of tapping the bid button to bid, you have to swipe it, although it's only certain people that's been implemented for, and others are still on the tap system. It's confusing to me. I don't really understand why that happened. But that was going on, and also Whatnot was glitching. The stream was really choppy and weird for people. Some people weren't able to bid. This happens with Whatnot periodically. I still love Whatnot, and that's just one of the negatives about the platform, is that it's still relatively new. It still runs into these technical issues. This pair of Lululemon yoga pants sold for $8, which is not very much. This is a Coolie Bar long sleeve rash guard shirt. Rash guards are worn by surfers and boogie boarders and other oceanic type people. It's a great brand. This sold for $3. It is covered in stains. If you find this brand, I would get it. If you find it at a thrift store, sell it on eBay. Sell-through rate is very strong. I've tried to sell these. I think this is the third time on Whatnot. This is a pair of Zara 100% linen pants, men's pants, sold also for $3. And this USC Nike Dry Fit polo shirt sold also for $3. Total for the last three was $9. So I'm sure many of you have already gone to my comment section to say, well, case in point, this is why Whatnot is bullshit, and I'm an eBay seller, and I'm not going to bother with Whatnot, and you're wasting your time, and I'm smart, and you're an idiot. I'm sure there are those people. I still am a partisan for Whatnot. Despite all of the flack that it gets from so many quarters, it has been so good for me, and I have made so much money on Whatnot. As with all reselling platforms, these things will happen. And also, these things will happen if you're not a beautiful, eternally youthful, highly popular, decorated YouTuber such as myself. This is a situation that you might find yourself in, of trying to make money on Whatnot, not getting a big audience, not getting a lot of people watching your streams, and then selling stuff for bottom asking price, which for me is $3. This is something that I've heard again and again and again and again from people, and I am sympathetic to it. Notice that the stuff that is selling not for $3 is the good stuff. There's a couple mistakes basically that you can learn from. One, I was selling not very good stuff. This is stuff that I had just sitting around on my floor that was waiting to be thrown into a Whatnot auction or, listed on eBay hypothetically. So it was not stuff that I would expect people to spend more than about $3 on anyway. And two, it was essentially a pop-up. I guess three mistakes. Two, it was a pop-up. There was not a whole lot of lead up to this auction. I didn't give people much time to anticipate it. I think I had less than 24 hours notice. Also, the clothing was not curated for a specific buyer. And I think that is pretty key on Whatnot, I have found, is break it up by gender. And also, I would break it up by era. or just the bifurcation of contemporary and vintage. I think that does make a difference. That's not as big of a deal as breaking it up by gender. I would say women's contemporary clothing and men's vintage or unisex vintage t-shirts are the two best-selling, most reliable categories for clothing on Whatnot for me. That may be different for you, but you want to pitch your auction to a specific buyer base. There is not a lot of people who are enthusiastic about, I'm just going to be along for the ride no matter what you show me. This sports bra, this basic Adidas sports bra, flip for $3. I think that's pretty fair, actually. Chico's Travelers tank top, $3. This is still early on in the stream, and a bunch of people were scrambling to try to figure out how to bid. There were only a handful of people who were actually bidding on stuff because we couldn't figure out that it was the swipe issue. This Thrasher t-shirt that I bought for $5 flipped for $5. Oh well. Claremont Surf Shop t-shirt, that's a local thing, flipped for $3. Most of this I did flip source at the bins, so the cost of goods is very, very low. So I didn't make really very much money on the $3 sales, but I didn't lose money either. This flip for $10, the Chinatown Market shirt. That is a streetwear brand. This holds value. Not as much value as I had hoped for, because this had been listed on my eBay store for a long time and it didn't sell. I think I had it priced around $50-$60. But someone bought that for 10, should be able to make some margin on it if they decide to resell it. I think that's a fair price. This weird hand graphic t-shirt flipped for $4. And one of the reasons these two shirts didn't sell for more is that I was forthcoming in the stream about the fact that they had been sitting in my eBay store for a long time and hadn't sold. So reasonable that people wouldn't pay up for them if they're trying to flip them. This one flipped for $16. I think this might have been the top selling item, the most expensive item that I flipped. It's a Mike Paré skate shirt. I don't know who he is. He's a skater, I think. Really nice, like high quality t-shirt. And I explained to people, like, there's no track record on eBay of these, but they sell new for like $50-$60 online. So I assume that someone will be able to make some good margin on that. This RoboCop t-shirt flipped for $8, which is pretty good considering the fact that it had pit stains and a bleach spot on the collar. So even, you know, in poor circumstances when stuff is not selling, the stuff that does sell is the stuff that is interesting or clearly valuable to people, which is a lesson to be learned with Whatnot. Clothing on any reselling platform, Whatnot included, is relatively labor intensive if you decide to screen it and measure it before you sell it, which not everybody does, but I think is important to the point of being almost mandatory. It is fairly labor intensive, so my recommendation and what I'm going to do for myself selling clothing on Whatnot is be more selective. Just show people the stuff that they really want, try to acquire it for cheap, and talk up its virtues. Not in a salesman-y way, but explain to people why the stuff is worth picking up if they don't already know. Or stuff that's weird and eye-catching like that. This is the Belstaff dress shirt, which is a nice European brand of dress shirt. And someone bought it for $3 and told me to keep it because I mentioned that it does fit me. It's very nice of them. Jack, if you're watching, thank you. Another one I had listed on eBay for like $50 and nobody grabbed it. The Karl Marx t-shirt sold for $4 to the same guy. Would have hoped for a little bit more for this, but Karl Marx t-shirts are a niche market. And in order to get the good money for stuff on Whatnot, you need multiple people to be interested, actively interested, and desirous of a particular item, which is really just the only metric that counts, is are you showing stuff to people that is going to generally be in demand, or it's going to have more than a couple, like one or two people who want it. That's how you get the bidding going. This was an unbranded turtleneck sweater, women's sweater, sold for $3. Same buyer. Same with this, just a basic sweater, sold for $3. This Wu-Tang shirt flipped for $13. People had at this point figured out, you know, we had figured out that you had to swipe to bid, so the bidding was a little healthier, a little faster. $13. That's not a bad flip. This basic Billabong shirt flipped for $3. That is a fair price for that. Nothing special, not a great brand. This one I was disappointed in. It flipped for $4. This is the Silk Bear graphic shirt, short sleeve shirt. Would have liked to have gotten a little bit more for that, but I've had it for so long that it's fair just to get rid of it. This was another great sale. This is a men's small Columbia PFG fishing shirt, flipped for $11, which is a pretty great price for this. That's PFG. It's my favorite Columbia to flip, and it has a weird pattern on it. It has flies, like fly fishing flies in the plaid pattern. This vintage denim vest flipped for $6. This was a disappointment, especially because I know that I spent more than $6 on this at an estate sale, although that was my mistake because I was just going by aesthetics, which didn't really work out on eBay. Tends not to. This is from H by Halston. I think this is not very desirable. It's just a basic cold shoulder top, $3. This dead stock vintage t-shirt flipped for $3. That is also a disappointment, although it had a big stain on it. I think, again, if I had been running a vintage t-shirt auction with more than 24 hours notice, I probably could have gotten more than $3. I would guess at least $6 or $7 for that. This one sold for $5 to the same buyer. Same kind of deal. It had a little spot on it too. Unfortunately, I did lose money on those because I sourced them from a Goodwill, probably for $5 or something, but that's the curl of the burl. This is from a brand called Hot Cotton that I don't think is that great of a brand. I got it because A, it was at the bin, so it cost basically nothing. B, 100% linen and wood buttons. There's hot cotton there. Flipped for a whopping $3. Normal, a play on the NASA logo. This is for like a local San Diego neighborhood. Most neighborhoods are local to somewhere. $3. This was a shocker. I can't believe this only sold for $3. This is the Mr. Rogers t-shirt. Admittedly, it did have a stain on it. I would have thought that even given where we were, what we were doing, it would flip for way more than $3. This is Vans. I flipped it for $1. Oh, this was the first item that I sold when I restarted the stream because it was having so many issues. So I asked people to try to bid on it. So I started it at $1. I was like, a couple people just bid on it, get it up to $3 maybe, and nobody did because there were still issues with the bidding. So I flipped it for $1. Oh well. This is it's something manga or anime. I don't know what the character is. Actual RoboCop. I would have liked to have flipped this for more than $4, but I didn't. This is a New with Tags jacket, like blazer, from a brand called Eloquy, which Bob tells me is a good resale brand. Only flipped for $6. Once more, if that was in a women's contemporary auction, I probably would have gotten double digits for it. This one flipped for $6. This was early, so I'm going by order, so a lot of people were there early in the stream and late in the stream, so this isn't like chronological for how they were auctioned off. $6, again, not great, but again, beginning of the stream when it just wasn't working. Sold a bag of scarves and a couple of women's tops for $9. Not too bad, I got all that for free. These Chico's linen pants sold for $4. Not a whole lot, but got them at the bins, so not a lot into them. This is a bag of scrap cashmere sweaters that I got just over time from the bins. Stuff with holes in it, or tears, or little stains. You can lot this up and sell it on eBay as scrap cashmere, crafting cashmere fabric. Sold the bag for $15, which is pretty good. Especially because, again, at the bins, cost next to nothing. You can do that trick at retail thrifts, too. You can bring it up and say, you know, this has a big hole in it. What can you do? A lot of times, they'll give it to you for like $1. This was a new Express knit sweater, women's sweater. It was early in the stream, flipped for $3. That was pretty tragic. I did get it for free from my neighbor, so I didn't lose money on it. But this should have sold for more. Express is not that great of a brand, but the new tag stuff is, worth selling. This flipped for $8. I would have liked to have gotten more for this, $8. I don't really have an excuse for this one because it was late in the stream. I talked it up. It just didn't go for as much as I would have liked. This one was just straight up an L. The brand is Roberto Ferenz, vintage, authentically vintage, crazy pattern disco shirt. Just didn't work out. This is a pair of Vince Camuto pants, women's pants, flipped for $4. I didn't think this would sell at all, so I'm actually happy with that one. Vince Camuto is an ass brand. Villain Enterprises. This is a wrestling shirt from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Flipped for $5. Happy with that. Had it forever. Didn't sell. Yeah, happy with that one. I also am pretty happy with this. It's just a basic Reebok athletic shirt. It sold for $3. You know, got it at the bins. These things are a little tough to sell when they're this basic. So, whatever. Nike Beast graphic t-shirt, size LT, sold for $3. Would have liked to have gotten more for this. This is an unstructured linen blazer from Banana Republic, flipped for $5. And finally, this Inconceivables t-shirt that is Princess Bride themed. It did have a stain on the back, flipped for $5. Little bit of a disappointment, but oh well. So, Bloodbath. Keep in mind there was a lot of stuff that didn't sell also. So I've enumerated my sins as far as strategy goes going into this. I didn't expect a big fireworks show of a stream because I knew what was up. I knew that it was not smart to mix everything up like this and give people no notice. And, the glitches were out of my hands. But I expected to sell a bunch of stuff for $3. I expected a lot of those to sell for more than it did. So, if this trend continues, like if the clothing grind on whatnot is producing results like this in the long term, then that is certainly a problem. But a one-off like this is not cause for alarm to me, at least. To be redundant, to summarize, target individual buyers, like specific buyer bases, and sell them good stuff. The kind of stuff that will sell well on Whatnot is the kind of stuff that you would bother to list on eBay and Poshmark. So you have to make a strategy decision that will probably largely have to do with your level of popularity and renown on the app, which you do not need to be an influencer to make happen. There's plenty of people who have built up a reputation and a buyer base on that app natively. And your sourcing, how much you're getting the stuff for. If I had spent retail thrift prices on this stuff, this would be a true disaster. I would have lost potentially hundreds of dollars on this, which is, I think, why people get scared off of Whatnot in part. Because they are sourcing stuff for more money than is worth really rolling the dice on, just leaving it up to chance on the app like that. So if you can target in on stuff like the bins or garage sales or buying people storage units or like finding people who are just doing barn burning sales at the swap meets or flea markets, as you might call them, stuff like that, then it makes sense to do clothing or to do anything. I've been focusing on other niches over clothing on Whatnot and doing very well with it. And anyway, those are my thoughts. That's my disaster report, I guess, for that auction. And hopefully that is not a sign of things to come. I don't think that it is. If it is, then you can all, dance on my grave as a Whatnot seller or whatever. Or I'll just sell clothing elsewhere. Thanks for watching.